when they colonize a part of the world, they do not leave, they do not decolonize until and unless they have put in place institutions which will ensure that that society will continue to be ruled by them by property. And in the process, they seek to transform the rest of mankind into carbon copies of themselves. This never happened before in history. If I do not seek to understand what's happening here, then I've got peanuts in my head. When will I wake up?
The Messenger of Allah, Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, informed us of the release of Dajjal into the world during his lifetime. He went on to say that when Dajjal is released into the world, he would live on earth for 40 days. One day like a year, one day like a month, one day like a week, and the rest of his days like your days. The analysis conducted in his book is such that it argues that when Dajjal was in a day which is like a year, Britain was his headquarters. And when Dajjal moves to a day which is like a month, the United States of America became his headquarters. And finally, when Dajjal is living in a day which is like a week, he comes back home to the Holy Land. He comes back home to the Holy Land.
Many people today, when they find themselves frustrated by the inability of science to answer some of the deepest questions of our time, are looking to the past.
We are reaching a confluence of tipping points in fundamental systems. There's tipping points in the energy system, there's tipping points in the climate systems of the planet, there's tipping points in terms of the financial system, food production, water issues.
We're at the moment when all of these things converge. That time when the world is either destroyed or made new or both.
Every world culture has always had its own prophecies of an end time. I think it's only natural that people are feeling a connection between our cultural tradition with what is happening in the world today.
How do you deal with religious symbolism, particularly in the context of the end time, of the end time, of the end time, of the end time? The Blessed Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam declared, every prophet warned his people about the Antichrist, about Dajjal, the false Messiah. And the prophet Noah warned his people. But I say to you something that none have said before me. The Antichrist sees with one eye, his left eye. He's blind in the right eye. It looks like a bulging grape. But your Lord is not one eye. Between his eyes, on his forehead, is written the word Akhir, disbeliever. And every mu'min will be able to read it. A mu'min is the one who has accepted the religion, the true religion, but has not only accepted it with the lips, but the truth has entered into the heart. The one who has faith is a mu'min. And so every mu'min will be able to read and recognize this believer. Whether that mu'min is literate or illiterate. Well, then why is it that the one who is a disbeliever cannot read? The one who has faith can read. The one who has no faith cannot read. So maybe we should send him to the eye specialist to have his eyes examined. Why can't you read? But the report comes back from the eye specialist, perfect vision, no glaucoma, no cataract. His eyes are perfect. Well, then why can't he read? Even though his eyes are perfect. And why is it that the one who has faith can read and recognize Akhir, disbeliever? Maybe that the one who has faith is not reading with these eyes. Do we have any other eyes beside these eyes? Do we have any other ears besides these ears? Do we have any other means of acquiring knowledge other than through sense perception and rationality? The modern godless world says no. The Quran says yes. The Quran says that the heart can see. The Quran says that the heart can hear. When faith enters into the heart, then Allah puts nur in the heart, light. And with that light, the heart can see what these eyes cannot see. And so now it is plain and clear that when the one who has faith is seeing, he's seeing with more than these eyes. He's seeing with the heart. And so now it is also plain and clear that when Dajjal sees with the left eye, it symbolizes external vision. When Dajjal is blind in the right eye, it symbolizes internal blindness. With this introduction, we understand now that when we're dealing with the subject of the Antichrist, there is a lot of symbolism involved in it. Religious symbolism, which needs to be interpreted. Knowledge externally acquired is absolutely important. A very keen observation of events unfolding in politics, in economics, in monetary economics, the irreversible meltdown of the US dollar that we've been anticipating for years now. A keen observation and an effort to understand with the external eye events unfolding in politics and economics is absolutely important. But there is also the necessity for internal, intuitive, spiritual insight to go beyond the external world to reach its internal substance. You cannot understand the world today unless and until you recognize that appearance and reality on all things connected with the Antichrist are opposite to each other. And unless and until you see with the internal eye in addition to the external sight, you'll be deceived. Misguided, you will not be able to understand and interpret the world today. We need, therefore, an epistemologist to deal with an age of awesome deception.
I bet you can be more comfortable with your period.
There's a lot to love about Toyota trucks, like the full-size.
I know there's someone out there for me. That's why I call Live Links.
As long as you want it. Hi, Hop, come home. Now get Comcast.
I'll satisfy your hunger? Good, because now when you buy a...
As we witness the world evolve, is the individual in effect devolving? With each passing moment, Our lives are moving at a faster rate, rushing. But do we ever pause and reflect, ponder, question? How did it come to this? A world run through systems, a mechanical labyrinth, built as a prison where the bars are invisible. It exploits our insecurities, enriches itself upon our ignorance, suppresses our ambitions. Have our goals been diverted from achieving the infinite to supplicating for the temporary? Have we lost sense of ourselves? Is the thing we are chasing real or illusion? In Arabic, the term for Antichrist is the Dajjal, the great deceiver. The great deceiver. Have we been deceived? Have we begun to believe his lies? Have we accepted his definition of happiness, success, truth? Have we been deceived to believe in the false and reject the truth?
That's the trick! Learn to live simple and hate it. Learn to say, I'm good, you can keep it. Stay hating. Walk with God. We need to go to the top or to the bottom. We need to go to where the real architecture of government is. And it's not in a president. It's in a global scheme to make the 99% work for the 1%. And the 99% are going along with it because they're tempting you with everything you want. In rap, a rapper named T.I. put a record out. He said, you can have whatever you like. Americans love that. You can have whatever you like.
Their obsession is to transform the rest of the world into carbon copies of themselves. And in order to further this process of transformation of mankind into carbon copies of themselves, they bring to the world something called globalization. So the whole world becomes connected. The whole world becomes interconnected. And as the world becomes interconnected, television is used as the master instrument for brainwashing the rest of mankind and causing mankind to become copycats of the West.
So in a sense, what we're seeing is using branding that is so enmeshed in our culture and in our lives as a way back into our own society, as a way to engage with globalization. Because if you pick up a shoe now, you have the story of globalization in your hand. You have leather that was maybe produced in Argentina, shipped to the Philippines, produced by a Korean subcontractor that went through a Hong Kong broker that was dealing with a company in Oregon. So you're looking at this thing, and if you can deconstruct it, if you can trace all the components to the global economy, and not only that, but find out how much that company that's selling you that shoe spent on advertising last year, and how much money they paid a superstar athlete to sponsor them, then you have the disparities of the global economy in miniature, the winners and the losers. What we've seen in the past 6 years is an explosion of brand-based investigative activism, where you have campaigners that have looked behind the brand, peeled away the facade to see how the goods are produced. There are labor groups in the United States that have sponsored tours of Nike workers, of Gap workers, going to U.S. campuses, to community centers, to tell people how their products are produced. And of course, this is very uncomfortable for these companies, because even though they are the engines of globalization, they don't really believe in globalization, not this kind of globalization, right? I mean, their whole system depends on the world of production, the world of consumption, staying safely apart, and they're not seeing this connection at the grassroots where we learn the secrets behind our shiny, perfect, airbrushed global world. So now these brands have become, in many ways, the most visible targets of globalization, so much so that whenever you see a protest, during a protest, there'll be a line of riot cops guarding the Starbucks, guarding the Gap, guarding the McDonald's. And this strikes me as tremendously symbolic somehow, that they're guarding the facade, the entry point into the world of globalization. And what this activism is doing is it's putting them together. And it's going to the shiny facade of the brand outside the mall, outside the superstore, and saying, we know how your products are produced. That's what these campaigns do. They make globalization real. They say, it's about the food that you eat, it's about the clothes that you wear, it's about the toys you buy your kids.
Globalization is a system that ties in industries from around the world to be working for the same business interests. A machine, globally fulfilling the needs of the few, teaching you that humanity will perish without it. In a globalized world, corporations become living, breathing persons, a modern-day slave master.
These are a special kind of persons which are designed by law to be concerned only for their stockholders and not say what are sometimes called their stakeholders, like the community or the workforce or whatever.
We are deceived into believing that without the system, we won't survive. But in fact, the system won't survive without our support. Just like a beehive, it needs its drones. People who will never ask questions, people who will never step out of line, who will begin to need the prison they are in, depend on it, love it. Have we lost our humanity? Have we become the gears of the machine? A machine which only survives by feasting on us, guzzling us up, digesting us, only to excrete out its capital.
that a lot of people make when they think about corporations is they think, corporations are like us.
General Electric is a kind old man with lots of stories.
Nike. Young.
Energetic.
Microsoft. Aggressive. McDonald's. Young. Outgoing. Monsanto. Immaculately dressed.
Disney. Goofy. The Body Shop. Deceptive.
They think they have feelings, they have politics, they have belief systems. They really only have one thing, the bottom line. How to make as much money as they can in any given quarter. That's it.
Of course they make a profit, and it's a good thing. That's the incentive that makes capitalism work, to give us more of the things that we need.
They watched events happening and interpreted them. But the interpretation was not of predetermined. It wasn't determinism. It was seeing forces at work in which good and evil. When Israel chose to be unjust, then the prophet would say, if you go that way, it will lead to loss of life and destruction. You will be able to go to exile, you will lose the land, or whatever it was. If you return to God, the events will change. So it was not determined, it was always open-ended, but around an instinctive, prophetic instinct that listened to God and said, if we walk in God's way, this is how it will work. If we go another way, this is how it's going to work.
I agree with you. That if you are imprisoned with the word and you want to put the words together to form a map, you can be misguided and mistaken. I agree with you entirely because our prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, has described the world of the Antichrist as one in which appearance and reality are completely opposite to each other. And he said, beware of the last age because there will be great liars, people telling monstrous lies, so that appearance and reality are opposite to each other. Things are not what they appear to be. And he had a prayer, a lovely prayer. He said, "Oh Allah, show me things as they are, in parentheses, that I might not be deceived by what they appear to be." It is not the external form of the word, but the internal reality. And we need, therefore, an epistemology to deal with an age of awesome deception. The Quran speaks with almost the same words as the Bible. If I'm wrong, you can correct me. The Quran says there are people who have eyes and yet they do not see. He's shaking his head already. It's there in the Bible. They have ears and yet they do not hear. They have hearts and yet they do not understand. And now comes this very famous statement concerning the Antichrist, about which we are still fighting in Islam. The Dajjal sees with his left arm, is blind in the right eye. It looks like a bulging grape. But your Lord is not one eye.
have people who are waiting for one-eyed man. It wasn't Nelson, Lord Nelson. It wasn't Nelson. It wasn't Moshe Dayan. Moshe Dayan was a great general. Because they interpret it literally. We on this side of the fence, in Islam, who recognize this as religious symbolism, we say no, this is an epistemological process. The left eye symbolizes external sight and therefore knowledge externally acquired. The blind right eye symbolizes internal blindness and therefore an incapacity to receive knowledge internally.
Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, they all have this common belief that there is continuous conflict between truth and falsehood. But that there will come a final triumph of truth over falsehood. And that final triumph of truth over falsehood would herald the end of history. We turn now to modern Western civilization and their view concerning the movement of history and the end of history. What conception do they have of the movement of history? What is their conception of truth? And what is their differing conception of the end of history? I tell you, this is a truly fascinating subject. This is the civilization which has an obsession with the Holy Land. They may not say it, but they also believe that history is going to end with events which will unfold in the Holy Land, as the Christians do, as the Jews do. Modern Western civilization has displayed its obsession with the Holy Land in many instances in history. modern Western civilization, what is its conception of the movement of history? What is its conception of the end of history? Modern Western civilization, and I have studied it for a long time, is an amazing phenomenon in history. It is unique. No civilization in history ever was like it. It is the first time in history that a civilization has emerged like this. For example, it is the first civilization in history which has been able to acquire that power to dominate the whole world in such a way that the entire rest of the world combined cannot threaten its power. That never happened before in history. Where did they get that power from? They got it from an amazing scientific and technological revolution, which is still unfolding. Many more amazing things to come that will dazzle you. And the emergence of this modern scientific and technological revolution cannot be explained from the analysis of historical phenomena. No, it is an absolutely unique event in history. Modern Western civilization uses that unprecedented power to oppress. It is one of the greatest oppressors that history has ever seen. Modern Western civilization is also decadent to its very core. It is a civilization that is rotting at its very core, while yet at its periphery it glitters like gold. Modern Western civilization, which has this awesome and unprecedented power, which is oppressing mankind. Modern Western civilization, which is also decadent to its very core, also is a civilization with amazing powers of deception. Appearance and reality are always different from each other in all that pertains to civilization. It is a civilization with a mission in the world. We used to hear it in the days of colonialism. This is called in international relations called jingoism. That we have a mission to civilize mankind. And this mission took them not only to colonize the rest of the world, that's bad enough, but that didn't end the story. When they colonize a part of the world, they do not leave, they do not decolonize until and unless they have put in place institutions which will ensure that that society will continue to be ruled by them, by proxy, and in the process they seek to transform the rest of mankind into into carbon copies of themselves. This never happened before in history. If I do not seek to understand what's happening here, then I've got peanuts in my head. When will I wake up? When will I begin to think? When will the world have more to me than McDonald's hamburgers? What's happening? When they colonize a part of the world, they do not leave, they do not decolonize until and unless they have put in place institutions which will ensure that that society will continue to be ruled by them, by God's people. And in the process, they seek to transform the rest of mankind into carbon copies of themselves. Their obsession is to transform the rest of the world into carbon copies of themselves. This never happened before in history. If I do not seek to understand what's happening here, then I've got peanuts in my head.
Because if you're a believer, you can never justify war. You can never justify war. You can never justify colonialism or neo-colonialism or imperialism. You can't justify that. Latin America and the School of the Americas and the United States role is only a small slice of the pie. But what they do in Latin America is being done in Africa, and what is being done in Africa is being done in the Middle East, and what is being done in the Middle East is being done in Asia. So we're standing up for the dignity of the world and for the freedom of the world, and people of conscience need to stand up and speak with more power and speak with be more fervent and be vibrant in what you have to say and witness it in season and out of season, no matter what the polls say, no matter who is in Congress, no matter who is in the White House. Speak and preach and teach and organize until justice prevails. God bless you.
It is one of the greatest oppressors that history has ever seen.
No, there are no murders in Africa. Only regrettable deaths. And from those deaths, we derive the benefits of civilization. Benefits we can afford so easily. Because those lives were bought, so cheap were bought, so cheap bought, so cheap.
Imperialism has been one of the key factors to the existence of the Dajjal on this earth. The imposing of his lifestyle on the rest of the world is what brought us to this point today. Is it any coincidence that the richest nations on earth, in terms of natural resources, are at the same time the most impoverished in terms of wealth? The third world nations are in fact the richest nations on earth, but they have been sacked and plundered by the system of the stage. Can you think of one land outside Europe that they haven't placed their influence into? For ages it has been going on until this very moment, under the same guise of freedom and the spread of modern civilization. But as the godless world teaches us, the end justifies the means. A philosophy that has been put into play by those on top. The same world powers that pay billions to wage war can spend a tenth of that amount to save entire continents from hunger. The same continents that they stole, raped, and pillaged for years to get the mass wealth they control today. Their very existence is based on the suffering of the rest of the world. All their luxuries cannot exist without having to take away life from others. On top of all that, in an attempt to further corrupt the rest of the world, they have removed from us our culture and beliefs and imposed what was needed to be imposed. They seek to transform the world into carbon copies of themselves.
To be Western in many cases means to have everything for myself and damn everybody else. To be Western in many cases means to be imperialistic, to go throughout the world with a puffed out chest like we own everything, we rule everything, we should have everything, and we are the rulers of the world.
I have dreamed of a unified Japan, of a country strong and independent and modern. And now we have railroads and canal, western clothing. But we cannot forget who we are or where we come from.
If we want to change the direction of this society, if we want to affect this society, we have to first reform ourselves. We don't have to be Western to be modern.
Bestialidad que no tiene una frontera determinada ni pertenece a un país determinado. Bestia por las hordas hitleristas, como bestia por los norteamericanos hoy, como bestia por los paracaidistas belgas, como bestia por los imperialistas franceses. El así que no se puede confiar en el imperialismo, pero
finally, there's something very curious about modern Western civilization. I consider it to be the most important thing of all. What is it? It appears to be a civilization that is essentially godless. It appears to be a civilization that is committed to materialism. It is a civilization which is constantly attacking religion and the religious way of life. And as a consequence of that war on religion is in a state of decline around the world today. Yet, the reality is that modern Western civilization has come into being as a consequence of a reconciliation, a curious reconciliation, a rapprochement between some Christians and some Jews. And yet strangely, mysteriously, mystifyingly, in modern Western civilization, the world has witnessed for the first time and for the only time Jewish-Christian friendship and alliance. So this is not real. It appears to be.
It is I used to say early on when I was a kid, I'd say, when I was a young senator, I'd say, if I were a Jew, I'd be a Zionist. I am a Zionist. You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist. You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist.
What brings you to Christians United for Israel?
Well, I was in on the ground floor. I worked with John and Diana Hagee for many, many years on many different projects.
And how much of an inspiration is the second coming in your support for Israel?
Obviously, it's what I live for.
Really?
And I hope it comes tomorrow.
And God is doing a miraculous thing as now millions of Christians in the United States of America have rallied to the cause of Israel under Christians United for Israel, and we go to Washington once each year to give testimony to our congressmen and senators that we're Christians and that we're from your district, and we vote for you or against you based on your support or lack thereof in the state of Israel.
Therefore, it's time for America to embrace the words of Senator Joseph Lieberman and consider a military preemptive strike against our land to prevent a nuclear holocaust and nuclear
I have a deep sympathy for the Jewish people. And I think as Christians we owe them a deep apology for the incredible suffering that we've caused them over the centuries, and that would apply also to Islam. I think that what they have gone through, and not least in the latter years under the Nazi Holocaust, I think is absolutely appalling, and the world did not help. So the modern state of Israel is almost a survival mechanism. I can understand why people who've been rejected by the world and treated like that should want a place of their own. Where I have a problem, though, is when Christians use the Bible to say that what's happening in Israel is a fulfillment of prophecy. Because when I was in Israel, what I found was a largely secular state. When you look at the way it operates vis-a-vis the Palestinians, you have to say it's founded on injustice and unrighteousness and cruelty. Now, if you're going to call that the fulfillment of prophecy, it has to be founded on righteousness.
What do we make of this? If that was the end of the story, that is already strange enough, but there's more to come. Modern Western civilization has witnessed not only this Jewish-Christian reconciliation and alliance, but all of that. This is the civilization which has an obsession with the Holy Land. And they all believe that history is going to end with eventually to unfold in the Holy Land, as the Christians do as a Jew. Modern Western civilization has displayed its obsession with the Holy Land. In many instances, how do we explain, for example, the sexual sin? 1917, and the Jewish government institute about what is the Holy Land. What did it say? That the British government was what? For the establishment of a Jewish national movement in the Holy Land. That false Messiah, in order to impersonate the true Messiah, must rule the world from Jerusalem, from the state of Israel. It is modern Western civilization which presided over the return of the Jews to the Holy Land. Without the modern West, they could not have done it. It is modern Western civilization which created the state of Israel. The European people did it, not the Oriental Jews. When Britain acted as the midwife for the state of Israel to be born in 1948, I believe it was 11 minutes later that the United States recognized Israel.
The trouble is not with the Jews. The trouble is with Zionists. Jews don't like Zionists. Most Zionists are false Jews.
Unfortunately, something new has developed in the world in the last 100 years, a new movement and ideology, and that is called Zionism. People confuse Judaism and Zionism. They consider it one and the same. But it could be nothing further from the truth, because in actuality, Zionism is antithetical to Judaism. It is the diametric opposite. Judaism is a religion, a spirituality, to serve God, to be subservient to God, practiced by Jewish people for thousands of years, to emulate God. As in Hebrew we say, Mahu lakum asa teherakum. Just as God is compassionate, you must be compassionate. Zionism is the transformation of Judaism into something new, entirely different, into nationalism, a political goal to have a land, to be a proud nation amongst nations, removing God from the equation. Judaism was the way of the Jewish people for thousands of years by all the God-fearing Jews. Zionism is 100 years old by non-practice created, concocted by non-religious Jews as a whole. Theodore Herzl, people who detested and abhorred the religion and looked for a way out, for a way to be considered still distinguished people and still remain not people who were thrown out of the community, so they gave themselves a new form of Judaism.
Congressman Julius Hahn presented Woodrow Wilson with a letter from three prominent Jewish Americans. They were Henry Berkowitz of Philadelphia, Max Senior of Cincinnati, and Professor Morris Jastrow of the University of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It read in part, "We raise our voices in mourning and protest against the demand of the Zionists for the reorganization of the Jews as a national unit, to whom now or in the future territorial sovereignty in Palestine shall be committed. This demand not only misrepresents the trend of the history of the Jews, who ceased to be a nation 2,000 years ago, but involves a limitation and possible annulment of the larger claims of Jews for full citizenship and human rights in all lands in which those rights are not yet secured. We ask that Palestine be constituted a free and independent state, to be governed under a democratic form of government recognizing no distinctions of creed, race, or ethnic descent, and with adequate power to protect the country against oppression of any kind. We do not wish to see Palestine either now or any time in the future organize the Jewish state."
The Torah is very clear in that when there was a decree of exile for the Jewish people 2,000 years ago, we were expressly told by God that we are forbidden to try to recreate our own establishment, our own entity. We are forbidden to have a state. Even in an uninhabited land, we must accept that our being expelled from the land of Palestine and the destruction of the temple was not because of our physical lacking, but only because of our spiritual lacking, that we were not on enough of a high level of spirituality. The books of the prophets are open, anybody can see and read that. And we yearn and pray as a Jewish people for the day when ultimately God will end this exile that we have been sent into, by He Himself, without any human intervention, when all humanity will recognize the one God. There will be a metaphysical change in the world. As it states across from the United Nations in the conclave wall called the Isaiah Wall, that the day will come when they will beat the swords into plowshares. One nation will not pick up a sword against another nation. That is what we as a Jewish people must yearn and pray for. And until that day comes, we must be loyal citizens, exemplary people throughout the world to serve God, be subservient, and be kind-hearted, good people as God requires.
I start by saying that I'm a Palestinian with strong Armenian roots, with a commitment to serve Palestine as a whole. I am a product of the Palestine that was pre the state of Israel, with a birth certificate that says Palestine. And I think I have inherited that vision of that beautiful geographical spot that is a melting pot of different ethnic groups, which in my Christian faith is also the cradle of Christianity, but also the source of Judaism and Islam.
And I know that when I visit APAC, I'm among friends, good friends. Friends who share my strong commitment to make sure that the bond between the United States and Israel is unbreakable today, unbreakable tomorrow, unbreakable forever. I have been proud to be a part of a strong bipartisan consensus that has stood by Israel in the face of all threats. That is a commitment. That is a commitment that both John McCain and I share, because support for Israel in this country goes beyond party. Our alliance is based on shared interests and shared values. Those who threaten Israel threaten us. Israel has always faced these threats on the front lines, and I will bring to the White House an unshakable commitment to Israel's security. We know that the establishment of Israel was just and necessary, rooted in centuries of struggle and decades of patient work. But 60 years later, we know that we cannot relent, we cannot yield, and as president, I will never compromise when it comes to Israel's security.
The Messenger of Allah, Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, informed us of the release of Dajjal into the world during his lifetime. He went on to say that when Dajjal is released into the world, he would live on earth for 40 days. One day like a year, one day like a month, one day like a week, and the rest of his days like your days. The analysis conducted in his book
is such that it argues that when the Tsar was in a day which is like a year, Britain was his headquarters. And when the Tsar moved to a day which is like a month, the United States of America became his headquarters. And finally, when the Tsar is going to be in a day which is like a week, he comes back home to the Holy Land. He comes back home to the Holy Land.
I've been saying to my audiences, if the Holy Land was liberated by a British army in November 1917, and that was just a chance military event, it happened by chance. If British rule over the Holy Land from 1918 to 1948 was just by chance. If the return of the Israelite people to the Holy Land 2,000 years after they had been expelled, and 2,000 years after they had been prohibited to return in their back, to reclaim it as their own, if this is also by chance, if the birth of the State of Israel in 1948 in the Holy Land is also by chance, and if the growth of Israel to such a state of power that Israel appears to me, and of course only God doesn't make mistakes, Bishop, appears to me to be poised to take over from the United States very soon as the ruling state in the world. If all of these things can happen by chance, then, Bishop, the cow can also jump over the moon. Not only has there been this curious relationship between Britain and the United States, that Britain and the Holy Land and Israel, which you cannot explain with normal tools of political analysis, but also with the United States and Israel. Which political scientist there is in the world today who can offer a rational explanation for the curious relationship that exists between the United States and Israel? And modern Western civilization has armed Israel. Transfer of technology, transfer of military technology, massive economic aid, massive financial aid, to the extent that Israel is now a superpower. And to the extent that Israel is now poised to take over from the United States as the ruling state in the world. Modern Western civilization has an unwritten conception of the end of history, which is connected with the Holy Land. There is an actor at work in modern Western civilization, which is constantly using modern Western civilization to achieve its objectives. There is an actor at work in modern Western civilization. There is an actor at work. I recognize that actor to be the false Messiah, Dajjal.